As you saw in the last video, the oil pump was already installed, so now the next step is going to be installing the oil pan. I didn't have quite enough clearance between the pickup and the sump, so I put the sump in the vise with a block and some towels on it and just kind of push this down until I have the proper clearance, which I do now. So I want to show you some other things too. So I did get the heads back, nice and clean, all resurfaced. He said that these heads were in amazingly excellent condition. He said the valves were good, the guides were good, there was no wear in them. They did put the little umbrella seal down in there, and these heads are now set to run. I don't know if that shows up there or not, but it says that they are set to run unleaded gas, and there's one of those on each head. And I changed this nipple, and then I realized after the fact I'd pushed the wrong button on the camera. But I took a punch, a flat punch, and just kind of flattened this in, the old one in, and punched it right through. And then I took a block and a hammer and just tapped the new one in with a little sealer around it. So hopefully that resolves the problem. So there's a button here on the top, right there, that starts and stops, and that changes the mode. And I think I push this sometimes, not realizing that I'm pushing the wrong one, and then I miss out on video when it's this one I need to be pushing. Alright, I put a little silicone down in those spots there, and the gasket's pretty much all in place. Has a little bit of sealer on it. Alright, there's like 20 bolts here, so I'm probably not going to bore you with starting 20 bolts and tightening them up, but that's what we're going to do here. So I just went around and torqued them all to 12 foot-pounds, and I went around the pan about 3 times like this, just doing this until when it clicked it didn't turn them anymore, because that gasket does compress down slightly as you go around and tighten them all, and then you go around and hit them again and again, and so I just kind of go around a few times with it set at the 12 foot-pounds of torque, just to make sure that they're all good. So I'm going to clean up the deck, just wipe some of the oil off, and we're going to get the heads on. And it says front on the head gasket, and these go over the dowels, and I think we're ready to throw the head on. That's the tightening sequence for the cylinder head and the torque specification. 352, 390, 410. You do it in steps: 70, 80, then 80 to 90. We're going to run them up to 90. Alright, so let me set the head up on the engine here. And get a couple bolts started. These bolts go into dead holes, so there's no, I don't need to put bird poop on the threads. And when I say bird poop, what it is if your bolts go into holes that are going to the cooling jacket, you need this on the threads to keep them from leaking coolant. But I'm going to just go around and put all the bolts in, and I'll get them torqued up. We'll stop the recording right now. First round I'm going around doing 50, then I'll do 70, and then I'll do 80, and then 90. So that one's 50. I just started these. That one's 50. and then the next step will be 70. And then just double check this one. Yeah, I did it. Okay, now 70, and then we'll go up to 90, or 80 and then 90. All right, they're all set at 90, and then I just go around a second time and just double check. And there we be. I cleaned up the bolt heads, so when I paint it, they look nice. Alright, let's get the other head on. And once again, it says front on the gasket. Alright, I just had to pull the lifter pan out rapidly. I forgot to put the tappets in the lifters, so I'm going to do that right now. This is where the assembly lube is going to come in, because I'm going to lube the heck up out of the bottom of the lifters and the sides, and like I say, I'm going to pump this engine up with oil pressure before I put it in the car. I'm going to put with the distributor out, I mean, I'm going to just run a socket on that oil pump drive and get oil throughout the motor. Alright, all the lifters are in now. I put the pan back in. Now the intake is ready to go. The intake has to go on before the push rods, because the push rods go through the intake, so the intake is next. Well, as you remember, I had a push rod, and it was this rod right here, and see how there's machined surfaces here? There's one there, one here for the push rods. Well, this one was not machined out very well. It was a bunch of flashing hanging over. So we just cleaned it up with the angle grinder. Alright, I knocked the camera all silly when I was manhandling this 500-pound manifold onto here, so I didn't get it setting on, but the bolts all need to be torqued to 35 foot-pounds. I got them down to 15 right now. And there is a specific pattern. Actually, it was this one that was next. And then I believe it's this one. And this one. Then I think it's 9 here. And this one, which is about 10. And 11 and 12. Something like that. Anyway, I'm just going to go around and double check all torques. Might do it a couple of times. Then I'm just going to go around one last time and make sure they're all good. So I got the push rods in, and I put the shaft on this side, and you set the timing marks to specific places, which it outlines in the shop manuals, and then you tighten these, like tells you which one's tighten 2 turns at a time, so you don't bend the shaft. And then I'm going to put the other one on, then it tells you where to set the timing marks, check the valve lash. Well, this is a hydraulic cam, and they show using a special tool, which I don't have. But they do talk about specs further in the book, and from what the lifter totally collapsed, the gap it should be, so we'll get an idea. I mean, they're the same exact length push rod that I took out of the motor. I measured them, they're identical, so I think it'll be fine. I don't think he took but a couple thousandths off the head, and to clean the parting surfaces, and the valve stems won't be up that much higher from the valve job, maybe a couple 2 or 3 thousandths, but we'll check it anyway. Okay, this one has a oil galley in that hole, so that one takes a special bolt. If you notice, these bolts are all the same except for one, which is this one. This one goes in that hole. So I'm going to put a little drop of oil on the top of all those. Push rods already oiled where they go in the lifter. And I oiled the bolts where they thread into the engine block. This is the bolt that goes in that hole. Just snug them down a little at a time. In case if any valves are open. Okay, both rocker shafts are just hand tight with a ratchet. I have not torqued any of the bolts down yet. I'm just going to turn the motor over a couple of times. And that just kind of seats everything in, then I'll torque the rock arm shafts to specifications. That was the push rod that was rubbing, and it looks like it all clears. Well, you're not going to see it with the camera, but I can see down in there, and it clears everything in the casting there. Everything looks really good. But you can definitely see it was definitely rubbing on it at one time. There you can see the lifter down in there. So everything looks good. These are all torqued down, 40 foot-pounds. I'm going to, the valve lash, they tell you, now these lifters are new, so there's no oil in them. They give you a spec and they tell you to collapse the lifter. And that spec is pretty big, so I'll get a bunch of gauges out and measure it. Because I don't have the special tool, so I'm just going to have to wing it with a gauge. Now that's for the mechanical cam. This is a hydraulic cam. And it says the 240, 289 are one spec and all other engines are this spec. And you saw the special tool in the other thing, so we'll see what that, if it's even somewhat close. You can get push rods in 60 thousandths over and 60 thousandths undersize. So they're within that specification range. That fits in there pretty good, and I went around and did a number of the ones that are closed, and I'll show you what I got. So the specification is on the left, and that is what it was is 70 thousandths. So we're going to call it good, and I checked numerous valves that were closed. It tells you when you're on TDC number 1 which ones are closed, and you can turn it 180, tells you which ones are closed. They're all pretty much all spot on, 70 thousandths. I'm going to call that good, as the engine I think was fine before it was disassembled. And these new push rods are exactly the same length as the factory original ones. Alright, I think I'm going to call it a day. Like I say, I covered these up just so nothing gets dropped down. I got to bead blast the valve covers, install them. I got to get a water pump. I got to get a thermostat so I can bolt that on. You know, I want to paint it all. That stuff's going to be blue. This is the thermostat that was in there. It's a 160. I don't know if that shows up in there or not, but it says, it's kind of wampus. It says Robert Shaw Controls Company, 370F-160 degree towards radiator with an arrow pointing towards this end. And it says, I think it said 160 on that too. So I think I'm going to call it a day. And oh, and one other thing, I got the, well, it's all pretty packed up, but I did get the complete exhaust system, and so that's all in the box. My head bolts are no longer on the fenders. So anyway, if you want to see this car restored, resurrected, subscribe to my channel. If you like the video, hit the like button, and thank you for watching.